I want to thank all my listeners. I've been looking at the stats and noticed that there are a lot of men listening. And maybe it's because men suffer with common mental health issues like anxiety, stress, depression. But 40% of men have never spoken to anyone about their mental health. And like 25% of men that were polled, you feel too embarrassed to speak about your problems, your anxiety, your stress with somebody. And that you feel like there might be a negative stigma about just being a man and sucking it up and not sharing that. And there's things like work, finances, your health. And one of the statistics says 40% said that it would actually take thoughts of suicide or self-harm for them to actually get professional help. And so there's something that's drawing you to hypnosis. Because of those stats that I just talked about, I want to let you know that with accelerated hypnosis, I don't need to know all the story. Unless you want to share that with me, of course. But it's not a prerequisite for me to know what you're suffering with, exactly what it feels like for you, because it's not a prerequisite for healing, because your subconscious mind knows everything about you already. And if you did share, that would just be the tip of the iceberg of what is going on below the surface that you might not even be consciously aware of. So what I do in my accelerated hypnosis sessions is I connect you with your subconscious. And because it knows everything, this huge iceberg about you, it even knows and remembers what was going on before you were born. While you were inside your mother's womb, it was aware of everything that was going on at that subconscious level that you can't even articulate. If you did know, if you were consciously aware of it. And because it knows everything, like this 3D mass of information, your feelings, your thoughts, and what you weren't thinking, and why you didn't think those thoughts. Because it knows all that, and ultimately wants the highest good for you. It has a positive intention for everything that it does. But you might be running an old program from your childhood, and it's stuck on this program that was created by a 5-year-old child. And then all that stress and anxiety and depression is sending you a message. Those feelings are sending you a message that those programs, those patterns that you find yourself in over and over again, or those things that you aren't able to deal with from a mental health point of view, those programs that created all that, those programs that were created when you were a child and that are still running, it's showing you that they are not working for you anymore. And as an adult, you can use hypnosis to reprogram your subconscious mind so that it's in alignment to what it is that you need now as an adult. So there could be patterns that you're seeing in your relationships. Maybe you struggle to hold a relationship. Maybe you attract women that are unavailable. Because really you're attracting all types of women, but you're choosing the ones that are unavailable to you. And you're ignoring all the ones that are interested, genuinely interested in you, and want to create a relationship with you. So just notice those patterns that probably come from your childhood, some type of pattern that was familiar as a child and got kind of programmed in there as this is what relationships look like. But then as an adult, it's not working for you anymore, but you're stuck with those patterns. You can intentionally change those patterns. You can intentionally change those programs. You can reprogram that GPS to take you on a different path. That path that'll take you ultimately to wherever it is you really want to go, like love and marriage and commitment and feeling secure in a relationship and having a partner that you can trust. And maybe you're experiencing that anxiety, that stress, that lowness, and you're using drugs or alcohol to manage that. And the problem there is that you have this dopamine system, you have this feel-good system, basically in your brain, that when you have a normal day, it's like maybe a 4 or a 5 out of 10. And then when something really amazing happens, it's a 10 out of 10. When you have a really good day, it's a 10 out of 10. You know that feeling that you have when everything's working out, when you're in flow and you're just having the best day, the sun is out, everything's going well. Well, that's a 10 out of 10 for you. And the problem with drugs is they disrupt that system out of 10. And all of a sudden, those opioids, that coke, that meth, amphetamine are off the chart in your scale from 1 to 10. And now the scale is out of 100. And that's where all those drugs register for you. 100 out of 100. And then what happens is your best day is 10 out of 100. And so now every day you're feeling that stress, that anxiety. And yeah, 10 out of 100 probably feels a lot like depression. Probably feels like a shitty day, even though that is your best day. Probably doesn't get any better than that. And now it's only registering as 10 out of 100. And so you get yourself into this loop where to feel good again, you have to do those drugs. You turn to those drugs because your best day isn't cutting it anymore. And you know you shouldn't do it, and now on top of all the stress and the depression and the anxiety, now you have the guilt and the shame. So you feel good in that moment. And then your life falls apart as you detox from those drugs. Feel even worse. You're down at a 1 out of 100 because you're dealing with all the impact of being on a coke bender or whatever it is. And you're struggling even on your best days to feel good. And you don't like it, but you need to feel good. And then you're compelled to do the drugs again, just to feel normal, just to feel okay, because your 10 out of 100 best day doesn't even register for you anymore. You get mentally, you get logically that this is a pretty good day, but you can't feel that anymore. And maybe there's a lot of guilt and shame around talking about somebody. Maybe there's a lot of guilt and shame about talking about your addiction with somebody and all the other parts that it's affecting, like your work, your relationships, your family. You might be struggling to find a job or to keep a job. They notice how weird you act in meetings. You have all this nervous energy. You say you want kids and a family, but you somehow manage to sabotage your relationships. And the women that you're going out with get upset and they tell you exactly what the problem is. But you don't have the strength to give them what it is they need in that relationship. Or you don't feel like you're doing anything wrong and it's their problem. It's affecting your family. There's members in your family that you don't really see anymore. They don't seem to show up at those same family events that you do. There's not a lot of communication between you and those family members. Because when you're not feeling good, when you're only at 10 out of 100, and you're not feeling good, nobody can feel good. Because you know how to get in there, be confrontational, push their buttons, make them leave the scene, the situation. And for a moment, it feels good, but ultimately, you're left alone, with your life being somewhere between 0 and 10 out of 100. So I get it, you might not want to talk about it. And so talk therapy is probably not for you. I mean, I love it, but even though I love it, I always need hypnotherapy to resolve those leftover emotions that don't make sense. With accelerated hypnosis, what I'm trying to say is you don't have to talk about all that. I don't need to know. If it makes you feel better, you can talk about it, but your subconscious mind knows all about that anyway. It knows more than you because it understands all the things that weren't in your conscious awareness that are affecting you. And so it has, with its positive intention for you in your life, it already has all the care plans, all the solutions, all the resources, all the answers. It has all the resources, all the answers, and we just need to connect you with those resources. If you've been dealing with your problems, your anxiety, your depression, you're just not feeling good, and you've been dealing with that with drugs, and you've totally messed up your dopamine feel-good system, so that almost every day, even though it's the best day you could ever have, feels like a 10 out of 100. And there's so many feelings, and so anxiety and depression, feeling low, is just your average. That is your day, almost every single day when you're not using. You can't fix that with your conscious mind, especially if you've been using for a while. You've messed up your dopamine system. You're running at 10 out of 100. You can usually solve your problems logically, but these aren't those types of problems that can be solved with your conscious, logical mind. And you might even be losing a lot of that executive function of your prefrontal cortex because of all the drugs that you're taking. You're so confused. Your anxiety is through the roof that it's hard to make really good decisions for yourself in your life. And you keep on going back to drugs because your brain has been rewired for that now. And if you're feeling guilt and shame about all of this, and you're feeling a little bit nervous about where you might end up with all of this, but you still can't do anything, you're compelled to do that. All that addiction, the emotion, the shame, the guilt, the fear, the anxiety, that's all in your subconscious. And so there's something that has brought you here today, letting you know that you don't have to talk about your problem to fix it. I don't need to hear about any of that. If you don't want to share that, and you just want to connect with that part of you that has the healing for you, that can resolve all that conflict, all that complex that is all tied up in your past, in your addiction, or in your use, or you might not even think you're addicted. So I'll say in your substance use. Maybe you can admit to substance use. You understand that you've messed up that feel-good system in your brain, and that needs to be fixed somehow when you're running 10 out of 100 on a good day. So it will take a bit of courage. There is a free breakthrough call, but if you don't want to talk about things, just DM me and we can go straight to a session. And that session where you connect with your subconscious, with your new intention for feeling good, for having a life that you love, for having a relationship that you love, for having a job that you love and feel good about. You can reprogram your subconscious GPS to stop heading in that direction that you are headed in right now. And you can reprogram it to where it is that you actually want to be. And then we can get all those parts into alignment with your new plan. So if you've tried everything, or maybe you've tried nothing, hypnotherapy may be the answer for you, because you don't really want to talk about things with anybody. You just want it fixed. You just want it taken care of. Your subconscious mind can do exactly that for you. So I feel for you. I would love to talk to you. Connect you with your subconscious mind. And let's see what it has for you, so that it can bring about that change quickly. Because your brain can be rewired in the most calm, resourceful state. So I want to thank you for listening. Know that there's a reason why you're listening to this. Your subconscious mind wanted you to hear this message. And instead of going back to what's familiar, you can take a step and reprogram your subconscious GPS to where you really want to go.